What's going on? We're going to try this one more time here. See if we get it to work. Going to let the room fill up. And let's see if it was successful this time. Okay, there I go. So what's going on, everybody? We'll let the room fill up here before I go crazy and go live. Had a little bit of a technical error, and I went live on my personal Facebook. I was kind of curious why nobody was joining in. So, it's first time joining on Thursday night after hours. Basically, we talk about anything. You got any questions, you can ask. If you're trying to learn some stuff, and maybe you will learn some stuff tonight. I have kpro open in the background, as you can see. I made a post last week, and someone said that they wanted me to go live with kpro and teach them some stuff, so that's what I have open in the background. What's going on, man? Everything is good over here. It's a little bit chilly today. This is all I have in the fridge, so I'm not going to drink it all, but as we do, it's been a long, busy week. Hopefully everyone else is having a good week and enjoying themselves. We got a lot of stuff that is going on, pretty much nonstop work, so we're ramping up. So if anybody's got questions or comments or they want to hear me talk about anything, I got notepads. I'm actually up in my office for the first time. That's a plus. So if anybody wants me to go talk about anything, discuss anything, make any videos, YouTube stuff, let me hear it. I am all ears. So we'll wait on that right now. So yes, I have, as you can see in the background, I have kpro open here. And I am going to let an audience kind of build up. Hopefully the person that wanted me to go live and talk about kpro is joining. And if not, hopefully they can join a little bit later. So I'm going to go through the basics on how to start your car up if it's running kpro. If you have kpro, then you probably know that when you do buy it, there's a sticker on the side of kpro that says literally you need to upload a basemap before the car will run. So that's what we're going to go from here, and we're going to show you how to do that. If anybody can comment and let me know how the sound also sounds, because I have a microphone today. We don't, last week we went off just not only do I have a microphone, I got a webcam too, so I'm stepping up the game a little bit. So yeah. I'm not seeing anybody comment, but that's okay. If it's a slow night, I get to go home a little bit early. Volume is, see, Steve? What's going on, Andy? Steve, how you doing? I'll get the in-between. Maybe I'm right on the mic. I don't want to talk too loud. I can change it, so if other people say it sounds low, I will turn up the volume. Steve, you are kind of old, so make sure your volume is all the way up on your phone and make sure your hearing aid is turned all the way up. Perfect. There you go. People are commenting. That's what I like to hear. They're also, if this is your first time joining when I was doing something with the program, and I always screw the program name up, OBS. But if this is your first time joining me on OBS, there is a small little delay. So if I'm reading stuff and it's a little bit delayed, well, that's why. And yeah, if you're just joining me, this is what I got tonight. I'm probably not going to drink it all, or else I might be sleeping upstairs tonight in my office, but I'll get to work bright and early tomorrow. So we have kpro open in the background. I'm going to, we'll switch our little gears to that. And basically, the first thing you always got to do is click File, New. And I wanted to make sure that the mouse is actually working. And there you go, the mouse is actually working. So what you're going to want to ultimately do is you click File, New. Unless you have a tune, maybe somebody sent it to you, then you click File, Open. Kind of common sense there at a point. So, and if you're curious of why I keep looking to the right, well, that is where, or your left, my right, whatever, that is where I can actually physically see where you guys are chatting with me. So anyways, we're going to go to File, New. Now, what's going on, Jamie? How you doing, man? How's your week been so far? So, And if anybody's got questions, feel free to ask, and I'll answer questions while I do this too in the background. So right now we have file new calibration open, and up here kpro is a little bit different compared to like S300 if you're doing an S300 or if you mess with hondata S300 before. You're gonna have the vehicle type, but ultimately the biggest thing that you're kind of really focusing on is not only the vehicle type but the ECU that you're running. kpro can be installed in all these ECUs. If you see right here, these are the ECU codes. PRB, PND, PNF, PRA, and then they have the little description too with the PRA. So the PRA can be on a couple. So you got a couple choices. So 99% of the times, and it's getting a little kind of rare. The ECUs are getting rare and it's hard to get and they're going up in money. But most of the times, guys are going to be after the PRB or the PNF. Those are the two most popular that I see. So to keep things easy, if you're running a PRB ECU, you're going to click PRB. Now, ultimately, what you're going to want to do, and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, and last week I skipped the live because I was busy finishing the office, but I still need to finish the drop ceiling. As you can see over there, it's not finished. But I told myself I'm not going to go 2 weeks in a row without going live, so I am here. What's going on, Alejandro? How's you are supposed to get some? I haven't checked my messages. I've been super busy in the shop. But did you get any info on your block? Is it flat? Is it flatness? Jamie, I'll get to that in a second. So let me go back to kpro really quick. So you got PRB selected up here. Now I clicked on injectors, and it's going to basically give me all the setup, all the files here with stock injectors. 310 is your stock injector size. So now you do have other choices over here that you can see. It goes from 440, 520, 550, 650, and so on. There's 362 I missed. So what I recommend, same recommendation that I recommended last week. I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago when I went S300, is you want to start with the basic tune. So what that means is, you know, all these are tunes that somebody has done. If your car had, if I open this up, if your car had a high-tech header and exhaust and a high-flow cat. Now, these are either are pre-tunes that somebody messed with, or they're tunes supposedly calibrated for it. You know, and that calibrated, whatever. Start with the stock tune. So start with the stock engine. Start with a fresh, clean slate. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so we're gonna open that up. Now I have a 3D map generated. Most times guys will have 2D map, and that's gonna change that. And it's on cam high angle speed. We are gonna change this to. We're gonna go to low fuel. This is what probably a lot of guys are used to seeing. Maybe you're trying to street tune. Maybe you got a wideband hooked up. So we're gonna let it play right there. Alejandro, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Depending what time I get home tonight, I'll shoot you a message either or. So I'll let you know where I think you should go next with that. While we're in between here, Jamie, biggest, most relative question, and real quick as well, and I forgot. So I can upload these on YouTube and people can watch later. Alejandro had an issue with his block and head, so that what I was just speaking of does not pertain to anything. But Jamie just asked the biggest, most relevant question right now is the new EPA regarding is the new EP. Are these new EPA regarding really going to screw us? And more importantly, is it going to screw us? You, as in the shop. So if you're unaware, basically what Jamie is trying to go, and I read it for word, I think. He was probably typing fast, and he's probably trying to work. But I appreciate the question, Jamie. So if you're not familiar, right now the EPA is basically stepping up and putting a ban on selling anything to do with catalytic converters or anything that would eliminate catalytic converters. This is nothing new. When I say it's nothing new, it's only new to you guys, the customer. But this has been something ongoing for a little bit behind the scenes, and we already knew it was coming, so this is no surprise to us. Um, Jamie, as far as your question goes, will it affect? Number one, it's going to affect everybody. Number two, depending on how strict they start getting with stuff and where they want to go next and what they want to attack next, yeah, it can get very ugly for the industry as a whole. And what I mean by that is, you know, it depends where they want to stop. Right now, they're targeting anything to do with catalytic converters, but where does that stop? It's going to be interesting nonetheless to see. And right now it's out of everybody's hands. There's really nothing you can do. You can just only hope for the best, I guess. So that's where I stand, and that's my thoughts on it. But yeah, it's going to be definitely very interesting to see. What's going on, David? So David just mentioned that I am in my new room. I am in my new this is my new office with real walls. So I'm trying to still get myself on camera, but over there the drop ceiling is still not finished. And actually in front of me too, the drop ceiling is not finished around the edges. I got to cut tile. But the last 2 or 3 weeks, me and not only a longtime customer, but a really, really good buddy over the years named Victor. He has made this with me. And it's amazing to see the before and after pictures because basically it was completely empty. And I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a drywaller. Neither is Victor. We've never done drop ceilings. We've done electricity. And currently I still have a shop light up here, like the painting shop light. But we plan on running a light switch. We plan on running the can lighting up top, and ultimately I will find some decoration behind me. Right now I just have my desk and a chair. I will be getting more stuff up here. But yes, it's finished to a point where I can work up here. I can have meetings up here, and I have. So it's really, really nice. So yes, hats off to Victor. Not only has Victor helped me, he also supplied this webcam. So hopefully I'm a little bit clearer tonight. He supplied the microphone. So if I'm too loud or too quiet, well, he told me what to adjust. So hopefully I'm clear. Hopefully you can't hear background noise. Every now and then you can hear the neighbor. He rocks some crazy music. He's here crazy hours, and I swear earlier today when I was on the phone, it sounded like he fell. And I wasn't laughing, but it was just one of those things where I don't know what's going on over there at times. But anyways, we're gonna go back to the program, kpro. So right now we got the base map open. We got the basic PRB base map, and what we're looking at is the fuel tables. But we want to get away from that. We want to click up here on the parameters. So now we're gonna basically go in. I call it the back half of the program. This is how you're going to ultimately kind of set up your car to get it to start. And what I mean by that is if you're running a different injector, if you're running a different map sensor, let's say you're running E85, there's going to be certain stuff that you want to set up. And I'm going to go basically down the road here, and I'm going to start with each little button, and I'm going to show you guys to start from what I'm doing. And if you're listening to this on YouTube and you're not seeing it, well, keep your eyes on the road if you're listening in your car. Don't crash. But ultimately, maybe you can watch it later on when you could watch. So we're in the closed loop parameters. 99% of the times, customer gets rid of all the oxygen sensors, all the wideband sensors, because you don't ultimately need them if the car is getting dyno tuned. Now, of course, if you are running one of these, it's really self-explanatory. You basically want to set up what you're running. If you're running an external wideband, you're going to have some options on there. I'm not hooked up to anything right now, too, so some stuff's not going to show up, some stuff's not going to appear. But most of the times, you're going to click on Disabled Open Loop. The car's not going to see an O2 sensor. And then down here, if you eliminated the secondary O2 sensor, you would delete that, so you get no check engine lights. The name of the game ultimately is to get the car started, but to get all the check engine lights away, make sure you got no check engine lights before you take it to a dyno tune. Closed loop advanced. That's going to be basically if you have a wideband in there and it can actually compensate the air fuels. Once again, if you're going to have a dyno tune, let your tuner set all that up. Talk to your tuner beforehand. Everything up here, we're gonna skip over. We're gonna go to the fuel injector tab. Now this is where, let's say you have a boosted setup, or you're running a bigger injector because you want to run E85, and you got your injector size right here. So we're gonna set it to the most standard injector in the industry nowadays, the ones that we sell the most of, the ones that we get phone calls about, the ones that we sell online. We're going to set it to 1,000 cc's. So right underneath is your dead time. Now this is all about how decent your injectors are. If you bought used injectors from eBay, if you bought no-name injectors, they're not going to come with a dead time chart. Most quality injectors will have a dead time sheet or a chart, or they're going to have a link to their website that's going to show you it. Now, when we click on injector dead time, they have a lot of popular injectors, as you can see. If you're running 240 cc B series ones for whatever reason, you can select that. Now, when I select this, you're going to see over here, these numbers are going to change. And ultimately, the dead time, or if you've heard, maybe it's called injector latency, it's basically how long it takes for the injector to react, open up, and close as it receives the command from the ECU. We're going to set up one of the most famous ones out there, one of the best injectors on the market, the Injector Dynamics 1,000 cc's. So now keep an eye on over here. When I click on that and I click OK, you're going to see those numbers change. That is big. That is a big thing that a lot of guys miss as one of the steps that guys just skip over. And that is crucial to get the car running exactly how it should be and basically not fighting up a hill. So, yes, that is very important. And that's, you get a quality injector, you're going to have that. Don't get a quality injector and they're not batched correctly. You can have little issues, idle issues, partial throttle issues, that good stuff. So now I didn't talk about this last week on S300, 2 weeks ago when I did the hondata S300 video, but we're talking about the overall fuel trim now. So when I open up the overall fuel trim, if you're just listening to it, to this recording, we have a couple settings. We have overall fuel trim. We have cranking fuel trim. Cranking fuel trim is super important if you're running some kind of different gas. Let's say E85, most popular gas that is out there nowadays. E85 takes a little bit more fuel to get kicked over. This setting is ultimately where some guys will complain and say, hey, my car starts hard, such and such, I got it tuned elsewhere, can you give me some tips? My car starts hard in the wintertime. This is kind of what you're shooting for. Ultimately, the end goal is to have the car start no matter what is the wet. If you got good injectors, because injectors do play a big role in it, is to have that car start every time, just like it's a stock car. So you can start in increments. As I kind of always tell people, you want to start at 5. You want to start and then move it up to 10. Move it up to, you can go to 12. And then ultimately, you're going to try to see how the car wants to start. Now, this is going to be hard in a sense because once the car warms up, you only got one attempt at a cold start. If you let the car warm up, you're going to have to let it cool down. That's why I tell customers too, if I'm tuning a car and it's already here warm, let's say you drove 2 hours away, I'm not going to let the car sit for about an hour or two with a fan on it. This is just where a lot of a lot of experience comes to play, and then calculation. And then I tell customers, hey, if it needs to be fine-tuned, the cold start, let me know. I'll send you something. We'll get it done, no charge. So let's just set it at 12% for now, and we have that. That's if you're running E85. If you're not running E85, don't touch it. Perfect. So we're going to go over to the next tab. And I'm going to skip over here to questions, and I'm going to take a little stop on the kpro. So David asks, and not tuning related, what are your thoughts on Spotted Cows, the beer? I appreciate the little, the beer. Spotted Cow's great. I had it. I went to Milwaukee, I think about a year and a half ago. Had to do some tuning, and I got away with the wife. And we stopped at Mars Cheese Castle. Um, Seems like the place to stop at, kind of when you're going out over there. And I loved it. I loved it. I wish they would sell it more over here where we're at. But maybe another trip to Milwaukee is in store. So we got a small crowd. Any more questions come through, I will answer them. And ultimately, if not, I get to go home early tonight, which I will gladly accept because it's been a long, long week. So now, anyways, we're under the idle tab. So the idle tab, the only reason we're in here is if you don't have an idle air control valve. So if you don't have an idle air control valve, you can disable it right there. Click disable idle valve. And ultimately, you're not going to throw a check engine light because your computer's looking for an idle air control valve and you don't have one. Pretty simple. We're going to skip over to the map sensor. Map sensor, so what I have in front of me, if you're not seeing it at home and you're listening in the car, I have a couple selections. Stock map sensor, then I have a replacement map sensor. When I click on replacement map sensor, I get a drop-down box. And once again, you have a bunch of selections. You have Motec 3-bar. You have the AEM 3.5 bar. But if you scroll down, you're going to have one of the most popular sensors out there. It's going to be the hondata / OmniPower 4-bar sensor. You could pick that. That's if you're running a 4-bar map sensor, of course. Makes sense, right? The tab right next to it is going to be the miscellaneous tab. So, miscellaneous tab is going to pull you up miscellaneous things. Makes sense, right? What's going on, Sam? How are you doing tonight? So, Sam asked if we're still planning on having a spring open house and how the NSX build is going. So, yes, Sam, we are having an open house for sure. We're in March now. So, we're going to have an open house in April. That's it. That's all I can say for now. I don't have a date in mind. That's all I can say. We're shooting for Friday. We're going to probably close doors at 2, have everybody come. If you can make it for lunch, fine. If you can make it for dinner, whatever. Last time we did this, we started at 2 or 3. We stayed until about midnight. That's the plan right now. We also do plan on having something very early Sunday mornings. This would be probably about once a month, maybe once every 3 weeks. It's going to be kind of geared towards cars and coffee type deal. Come in the morning, chit-chat, and basically have fun. So yes, to answer your question, that is still on play. The NSX build, we are waiting on parts. So basically with that build, we started a little late with the customer synced up with us, and for the payment that we initially needed, it was a little bit later last year in the year. We're waiting on parts. We're waiting on specifically the turbo manifold. We do need a K-series transmission. They seem to be very hard to find. A quality K-series transmission too, not one that's been beat to death. So if anybody has a good K-series transmission, let us know on that one. But yeah, so when we get the parts, we will start on it. Now we do have a game plan too that if we don't have the parts, we should be able to mock some stuff up and knock some stuff out. So when the time comes, we can we get ahead of the game. We did speak to a customer that does have a turbo manifold. He 100% said you can borrow it. I'm not doing my turbo build yet. Feel free. So we appreciate that greatly. So going back to kpro and keep the questions rolling. And we're in the miscellaneous tab. So on the miscellaneous tab, we have a bunch of settings. We have ECU options, as they call it. First one is immobilizer enabled. Most times, since you're doing a swap, you want to keep that unchecked. The second one is enable secondary O2, FTP, PA, and ELD. Boy, usually 99% of the times you want to disable that. Not a lot of guys, like I said, run a secondary O2 sensor. Purge system enabled. You want to uncheck that. Most guys that are doing a K-series swap do not keep the purge system. Now the ELD. ELD basically stands for electronic load detection. That's going to tell you if you have a wiring issue that the car is pulling more amps than it should be. I recommend keeping this enabled. Um, Main reason is if you have a wiring issue and you have a voltage issue, you wanna know that right off the bat. You don't want to you don't want to find that on the dyno. You don't want to have a tuner call you up and say, hey man, your alternator's not charging. I enabled the ELD, you had it disabled, and you got to check engine light. So I always recommend to keep the ELD on. Now, if you know specifically you have a wiring issue, let's say you wired something incorrectly, like a secondary O2 sensor, then you can disable it. But you want to keep an eye on that. That's I had a guy not too long ago. I had that scenario. He said, "Hey, I wired the secondary O2 sensor. It's not correct. Can we disable the ELD?" And we did ultimately. Then the invert EPS PSP input, you can keep that disabled. The other stuff too. The biggest thing, it's you got a speed sensor option. You got the normal speed sensor, or you got the counter shaft driven speed sensor, which is the 05, the 06 RSX, the S2000, and the TSX. That all depends on what you're doing. If you got a PRB ECU in an S2000, well, then you want to click on that so you can actually read the speed and what you're going. You got some other options down there too, which all is going to dictate what speed sensor you're running. If you're going to set that up, you can calibrate it if you're running something else. And then you have the fuel pump. You have the priming time. I'm going to say this, that you should really never change the priming time, but here's a little tip and a secret. If you're trying to drain the fuel out, you can click run the fuel pump continuously, and as that says, it will keep the fuel pump on. You can drain your gas out. Maybe you're going from 93 to 85. Boom, a little trick there. The next tab is the multiplexer digital output. This is all going to just depend on what vehicle you're running. We have a drop-down menu that you can disable it. You can click on normal. You can click on Lotus. You can click on data logger. 9 times out of the 10, it's either going to be normal or disabled, unless you're doing a Lotus swap or something like that. So we are going to skip over here now to, we can go to there's a tab called protection. And as I'm reading this out loud, I am reading it out loud just in case you can't physically see the screen. Protection is basically going to be boost cut. Do you want boost cut to happen at a certain PSI at a certain temperature, which it says cold boost cut. Makes the most sense. Cold boost cut means at what the stock setting on kpro is. If your car is anything 141 degrees Fahrenheit below, you'll have boost cut set at a different PSI. So basically, if you don't let your car warm up and you go beat the living hell out of it, your boost cut's going to kick on a little bit sooner. What I tell people, honestly, I mean, if you're starting the car up right away and you're going to beat the living hell out of it, your head's got to be checked a little bit. Obviously, you got a turbo, you got kpro, you have money invested in your car, so take care of it. The one little line underneath is overheating protection. So under that, it says force radiator fan on at 204. And then the overheating temperature, which is ultimately going to tell the computer, hey, you're overheating, it's set at 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what that basically means is if it gets to 220 degrees, you have the option for the check engine light to flash, to go on, and it will throw an overheating code, which is P0217. A lot of people don't realize that a stock coolant gauge on most Hondas will stop reading at about 180 degrees. So once it reaches 180 degrees-ish, 175-ish, the coolant gauge will read how it should, but it will not actually physically start reading a different, on the actual, we're talking about the gauge, until it's about 240 to 250, I think, if I recall. So if your car is starting to get to 220, your actual gauge in your car is not going to change, but 220 is it's when you're going to start having some issues. 220, and then as it starts climbing, you can have radiator hoses start popping off. Anything that's going to be the weak point in the coolant system start popping off. So that's where the warning is nice. Now, a lot of guys, if you're having a heating issue, a lot of guys will say, hey, well, can you kick my fan on sooner? Can you make it kick on at 165 or 175 degrees, 185 degrees? You don't want to do that. You're basically creating a band-aid of a problem that you have. You have a coolant issue that needs to be addressed. What you're ultimately going to do is you're going to kick the fan on too soon, and you're going to start fighting the thermostat a little bit. It's just not something you want to do. So that's my recommendation, is to really never change those. If you want to kick the radiator fan on a little bit sooner than 204, let's say 195 or 200, not a big deal, but don't be kicking it on at 165. Don't be kicking it on at 155. If you're kicking it on that early, you have an issue that needs to be addressed. The next tab is rev limit. Self-explanatory there. You're going to set your rev limiter. Rule of thumb: if you're not making hot horsepower if you're making horsepower up until 8,000, unless you need an extra RPM to not change gears if you're racing, keep your rev limiter to where you stop making power. Next tab is shift and shift cuts. Self-explanatory. If you want a shift light, if you want it to come on at a certain RPM. The next tab is the throttle tab. Once you get the car running at this point, you can set actually, let me rephrase that. When you start the car, when you have key on in the ignition, everything will be lit up here. The minimal reading is going to be when the throttle is closed. Maximum reading is going to be when the throttle is 100% open. You can ultimately do this to make sure that your settings are correct. Now, when you do set this, you can go back to your gauges or your display that are up here. And you're going to see your TPS right over here should read exactly kind of what it's saying. If you set it and it's reading -5 or -10, or it's only opening 90 or 95%, well, then you have a TPS issue. You got to adjust. You got to get inside the bay and adjust it. So we'll go back to parameters. We will kick that little tab open that is hidden. So we are leaving off at throttle. The last two tabs are traction control and VTEC. You're not going to have to mess with any of that to get the car started. Traction control is self-explanatory. VTEC is also self-explanatory. I will say, and I made a post, I think 2 days ago, or maybe even yesterday, don't recall correctly, but this VTEC window, the lower boundary, so if you're listening, there's two settings for VTEC: lower boundary, upper boundary, and then they have the RPM and they have the kPa, which kPa is ultimately going to be the vacuum or the pressure inside the intake manifold. All this means is you can change whatever word you want to click over here and change, but it means how much load is on your engine. So basically, if you're 40% throttle, VTEC is going to come in a little bit later. So you're not constantly in VTEC on the highway. Some people want to be. So if you want to be constantly in VTEC, you're going to just set these the same. That's what that means. It doesn't, VTEC is the most, yes. So David said VTEC is the most important tab. It's all about VTEC. It's all about that VTEC, and I'm saying it with an H. But basically, I've been hearing a lot lately that, and I do a lot of maps. I do a lot of chip DCUs. If you're not familiar with a chip DCU, I got some chips here in my little box, my little handy dandy box. So this is what a chip looks like. I do a lot of these. I send them out actually worldwide. And we have a little sheet that you have to fill out. It says where you want VTEC set. And I'm getting a lot of customers that think VTEC will actually hit in stages, like you're playing some kind of game where the first stage it's going to kick in normal, and then the second stage when it kicks in, your clothes are going to fly off. You're going into hyperspeed where you can't see around you, basically like the movies. What this setting basically means is high load and low load. So if you don't want VTEC kicking in on the highway, you would set it, the upper setting would be, 6,000, it's going to kick in later. I have found a lot of guys want it always kicking in at the same time. So usually, if your optimal VTEC point is 5,200, you'll set that at 52, and then you'll set this one at 52. It's that easy. But there's not stages. Don't know why people... It seems like the people that assume that are locals, and I'm assuming they're getting their information wrong from somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. And underneath, you got options, VTEC oil pressure switch enabled. 99% of the times these cars have VTEC oil pressure switch, but if it's not wired up, you can disable it so you won't throw a check engine light because, like I said, the name of the game is no check engine lights when you first start it up. You want to bring it to a tuner. You want to make sure it's pretty damn decent before it comes to a tuner. Isn't there a head that does in fact have two stages VTEC? Jamie, I believe. So I'm sorry, I was reading that, not repeating myself. Jamie asks, isn't there a head that in fact does have two-stage VTECs? Yes, I believe there is a VTEC. There's an economy head that does in fact have two VTEC solenoids or something like that. I don't know too much about them because usually those heads are kind of junk anyways, and by that time people are doing engine swaps, so I can't comment on that and actually say I know too much about that. So we're done with all the back half of the settings. You have your fuel maps. You have your fuel injectors calibrated. You have your map sensor calibrated. So your car's almost ready to start. If you're running 93 octane, 92 octane, 91 octane, you can go ahead and fire the car up and see if it wants to start. If you're running E85, well, E85 requires about 35% more fueling. You can literally click on these, everything. And right now I have the boost tab open. I have boost settings right here. But we're going to make your life a little bit easier. We're going to show the NA tables. So this is all we're dealing with if you're NA. A lot less tables, a lot less boxes for you to freak out about. But all you can simply do, if you're running E85 and you get this thing to idle correctly, if you get this thing to start correctly, you can select all the cells, right click, adjust, and then you're going to add, you can start with 35%. Now, if you're doing this, you're going to have a wideband in your car. You're going to kind of look at the air fuels. I'm assuming you're going to try to dial it in a little bit better. Maybe you want to drive it to the tuner. You don't want to pay for a tune. Well, there you go. That's what you do on that aspect. So now, when you start the car up, and you can see all up in my display, what's going on, Jake? How you doing? How you been? It's been a little bit. I know you ordered that Cortex a while back from us, the Cortex Boost by Gear. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Now up here is how I have my settings and my display and what I want to see. And these are different colors because they're not reading. And ultimately, you can set the warning tabs and change different colors. And you can also get it to alarm, let's say, if your oil pressure drops below a certain PSI. So when you start the car, what you should be seeing is RPM. If you're almost said distributor, but what I meant to say is if you're getting some kind of RPM pickup and your car is actually trying to fire, which it's seeing the crank trigger or seeing the cam sync up and all that, you're going to see your RPM kind of jump up to about 200 RPM, give or take. That almost kind of means that you're going to see spark. Not all the time, but normally that's a good indicator. So a lot of people don't realize that when you are trying to crank a car, RPM is going to climb just a little bit. If it doesn't climb, that usually means you're not getting spark for a reason. So other things to look at, of course, is battery voltage. Not a lot of people realize, but if battery voltage drops below a certain point, usually the rule of thumb is 8 volts, your ECU will not do anything. It won't have the power to do anything. It won't actually probably even want to, kick on the injectors, all that good stuff. That is a big factor. I know a lot of people are trying to rush at the very end and they're just dying to get their setup started. Make sure you have a fresh battery. If you don't have a fresh battery, get it on some kind of jump pack. So that is key. Now, the other big things that I will go into really quick is you have the engine coolant temperature, which is labeled ECT, and you have the intake air temperature, which is labeled intake air temperature. David, did I get your message last Friday? Resend me it, please. I don't think that I saw it. So the intake air temp and the engine coolant temp, these are big. A lot of guys will not run an intake air temperature sensor. They'll let them just hang out, have no sensor plugged in, or you're gonna have a sensor that's reading bad. And let's just say it's reading 200 degrees intake air temp. 200 degrees intake air temp is relatively. It's gonna probably gonna be about 210 degrees outside. That's what it should be. So now really quick, and same thing with the coolant. If your coolant is reading, let's say, negative 10 degrees, and it's a nice 80-degree day, well, you have an issue. And here is something very important that a lot of people don't realize. In the back half of the program, there is calibrations called, let me let that load. There's calibrations under fuel compensation. Fuel compensation is basically going to change how much fuel the motor is going to get depending on the intake air temperature and depending on the water temperature, the engine coolant temperature. Not a lot of people realize this, and you can see if you're looking on screen, and if you're not looking on screen and you're driving, I'll tell you. If your car thinks it's 208 degrees outside or 208 degrees inside your engine bay, it's going to actually start reducing fuel. So it's actually going to take 8% fuel away. So a lot of people don't realize when this is happening, if your sensor is reading wrong, it's going to be literally fighting the tune. So it is very important to have the intake air sensor and the engine coolant temperature reading correctly, especially the engine coolant temperature sensor. That's the one big thing that I see a lot of guys just don't even have it plugged in, and they want to know why their car runs super rich or rough at idle on a cold start on a very cold day. So that is that. Besides that, you're ready to start the car. You're good to go. Now we have oil pressure and fuel pressure hooked up because we actually sell these kits. So if you're running a kpro setup, we have a full kit, or an S300 setup, we have the full kit, plug and play. All you got to do is run one single wire to a voltage source. So you want more info on that, contact us. The questions are very slow tonight, so I'm just going to keep on talking. We got a small little house today, and we got 7 viewers right now. So I appreciate everybody sticking around and watching. So we are going to go now to, let's say you got the car running, and you and your buddy went on a little drive down the street, and you decided to do a pull. You got a little ballsy, and just said, hey, whatever, I'm going to go for a pull. Hope for the best. Hope that a rod doesn't come shooting through the block. So now we do a data log. So for a data log, it's very simple. Normally when you're connected, you have a lightning bolt lit up right here, and then you have a little record button. That is a circle, red button. When you do a data log and you stop it, you're going to ultimately have a data log that looks like this. I just pulled it up. It looks, it's called Graph on kpro. And you're going to see a bunch of squiggly lines. So all these lines represent something. Now, this is how I have it set up, and this is how I have it set up for the last car that I tuned. Every car is a little bit different, depending what I'm trying to do or depending if I'm trying to see something specific. So we're going to go over some quick, basic stuff really quick. And if the questions die down, I'm going to wrap up this beer, and I'm going to go home for the night. I'll be back tomorrow. So during this data log, what you can actually see here on the top screen, we have the cam angle. We want to make sure the cam angle is working correctly and doing what it needs to do during a pull. And this was a test pull. This was just something that I have saved here and pulled up for you guys. So you can see the cam angle that is working up here. Cam angle is doing what it needs to do. Down below, this blue line right here is representing VTEC. So you can see VTEC is actually off right now, but when we get over here, VTEC is on. You can also see battery voltage, 13.5, so we know the alternator is doing its job. Map sensor, this car is boosted that we have this run on. Seeing 3.9 PSI as it's entering VTEC. And the air fuel is reading 10.70 because there was not an air fuel gauge on this car, so it just goes to the default. Now, as you see down below too, we have another VTS tab. Ultimately, that does not have to be there. You can right-click and define templates, and then you can ultimately make your life easier. I'm going to disable that, and we're going to click on None. So that's going to go away. There's no reason for it to be double there. We have the ignition, which is 26 on this car, and we have the injector milliseconds, which is how much the injector is basically opening and commanding to open at that certain PSI. And then we have the duty cycle, which is going to be the fuel pump. Not the fuel pump. It's going to be how much those injectors are physically working. Rule of thumb on injector duty cycle is 80%. You don't want to go over that. If you start going over 80%, change something in your fuel setup, change your regulator, change to a bigger fuel pump, add a secondary fuel pump. You don't want to go on that edge where your injectors are failing to close completely and they're just stuck open. Not a good thing at all. Down below, you can see the TPS. That is self-explanatory, but TPS is at 93%, so something wasn't fully opening on this vehicle. What you can also see, though, is look at the vehicle speed sensor, which is your mile per hour. You can see how jagged it is. See how it's going up and down, and the throttle is open, but for some odd reason, we're going to 153. We go to 137 miles per hour, and then we shoot back up. In this case, if the car was maybe having some kind of slippage on the dyno, okay, but this car is actually having a vehicle speed issue. The speed sensor is not working, so that plays a factor in the tune to a point. And then, of course, you can see the RPM. Jake, if I have the time, can I school you on boost by gear? Sure. We will save that maybe for another segment, or if you're looking for a personal little class, let me know on that. Because as I have been doing now, as COVID is either going up or down depending on what state you're in, depending on who you listen to. But I have been doing more so one-on-one classes with people, and starting that off, and maybe we'll ultimately do a bigger class here. So yes, Jake. Lori asked if we have a TikTok. I do not have a TikTok. If you think I should have a TikTok, then respond that I should have a TikTok, and maybe we'll start a TikTok. If I say TikTok one more time, I feel like I should be taking a shot every time I say that. So, quickest thing here, since we are low on questions, as I talked about on the S300, if you overdo the graph here, you will see that everything is changing up here in what the display is reading. So not only will this follow the display, but if you look over here on the fuel table, that will ultimately start changing too. And that is exactly where you are at on the tune. So if you're, hey, I'm running very lean at 3,500 RPMs, so you're going to find that in your tune, and then you're also ultimately going to, let me minimize that. You're ultimately going to find it right there, and you're going to add a little bit more fuel. So Control I increases the fuel on hondata, and you can keep adding that. Go to another pull. Make sure you're good to go with your air fuel. So I won't say it's that simple, but it's that simple. When you do it every day for a living, it becomes second nature. We want to see more TikTok dances. So if I do get a TikTok, it's great from a passive income. People already love watching your tunes. So, well, there you have it, Lori. I will talk to the people in charge here as far as the media goes. We'll get a TikTok going. No, I appreciate that, Lori. Thank you very much. 100%. I love feedback from customers, whether it be, work, dyno tuning, TikTok. Steve, I have a personal MySpace still. MySpace should come back. With that being said, guys, if anybody has any more questions, let me know. I will stay here for about 2 more minutes. I can probably click on this program. Let's see if I know what I'm doing here. I can make that even bigger so you can see my face, and ultimately so I can see my face. So that's going to get bigger in that sense. Yeah, if anybody has any more questions, let us know. I'll answer them here shortly. If you are watching this after hours, feel free to contact us, message us. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can find us on YouTube, Rcautoworks. Please go on our YouTube, like and share. We're trying to grow that content. We're trying to grow that channel. The other thing I will mention too, if you call here, you're going to speak to somebody named Chelsea. Chelsea is not a tech. She does not work on cars, but she will help you get an answer. But you're going to have to also work with her. 2 weeks ago, I did mention how it seems like people are getting very, very rude with Chelsea, and they believe that a tech from the back or myself should stop everything we're doing and come and talk on the phone and give free technical advice. I love helping people. I love helping others, but work is work. When my guys are working, they have a job to do. And in a perfect world, I would have somebody here that just gives free advice, but that does not pay the bills, unfortunately. So please, if you call us, please respect Chelsea. She will take care of you. She will handle you the best of her abilities. And if she can't answer a question, she will get you in contact with somebody here. Jamie, I am not familiar with TikTok. I can look into it. My daughters have TikTok. I know a lot of people dance on TikTok. I'm definitely not going to go. People can joke around and say I should start an OnlyFans. I'm not going down that route. That's a whole different route. We're not going to do naked tunes. Now, customers have joked about it and have said that they would pay me. I don't know. Some are probably serious about that. That's a whole different conversation. That's what I'm talking about, Jamie. So, with that being said, guys, questions are kind of dying down. I enjoyed the night. It is roughly, how many hours are we into this? We are 50 minutes in, close to an hour. If anybody's got YouTube as well, really quick. If anybody's still here, we got some people here. I'm trying to find a new name for our YouTube videos that I've been doing. I've been calling them the Daily Shop Life. I don't like the Daily Shop Life. Give me ideas. If you give me ideas and I use something you give me, I will send you something free. I will send you a t-shirt, stickers. I got some random parts laying around. No naked pictures. I don't do that. And thank you, Jake. I appreciate that. I'll let her know. She is awesome at what she does. She wears many, many hats here. A lot of people don't realize how much she does. It's very unfortunate that some customers are very, very rude. And yes, we understand that you might be having an issue with your car, but we are making a living. This is our life. We can't drop everything we do. She has been hung up on. She's had some choice words mentioned. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, and people just need to learn how to the other thing too that she gets a lot is because she's a female, people think that she cannot handle what she does in an automotive type world, and it's a very, very sad way to look at it. No matter what you do, and it's very sad in that sense. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody. Take care. Have a good night. Hopefully you enjoyed this little 50-minute or so segment. I'm going to go home, going to enjoy some family time, and I do got a YouTube video that I'm going to try to upload tonight. We'll see how successful I am at that. Take care, guys.